お前、人間の子供だろ。俺は人間に触れられると
気をつけてね。
消えてしまう。
So, I just finished watching Hotarubi no Mori again for the first time in a decade. I saw it like literally 10 years ago, and that was during the time I think the first season of Natsume Yuujinchou was out. And for those of you who don't know, well, obviously you wouldn't know because this is a new channel. Natsume Yuujinchou, Natsume's Book of Friends is one of my favorite anime of all time. It's like definitely in my top 10 and my top 5. I also like Mushishi and Mushishi's show. Anything with yokai, really, I just think it's interesting. But I was watching this short, and again, the last time I seen it was literally a decade ago. And I actually watched it in honor of the new season of Natsume Yuujinchou. Natsume Yuujinchou season 7 is coming out in about 14 days. And I just felt like rewatching it just to see, I don't know, just because. And I feel like rewatching like seasons 1 through 6. I don't know if I actually will, but I'm gonna rewatch at least season 1 because I have this weird theory that maybe Hotaru in the film is actually Reiko, as in Natsume Reiko, and Gin may be reincarnated into Natsume, or maybe there's just something there, and there's something there with Nyanko Sensei as well with Madara. Because if you remember in the show, Madara says that Reiko is the only human that he actually seen up close, and that's the only human form he can take because he's gotten a good look at her. But then in Hotarubi no Mori, we have spirits who, I mean, they're very isolated from the human world, but they can all pull off perfect human disguises. So that's kind of weird. I mean, then again, Madara was locked up. But again, in this theory, I feel like Hotarubi no Mori is the same place that Natsume Yuujinchou takes place in. Like, Natsume ends up exactly where Reiko was growing up. I mean, I know the Fujiwaras do take in Natsume, and that Reiko did help. I forgot his name, but the male Fujiwara, in his youth with the yokai problem. But there's also some locations that it makes me feel like it's the same place that Hotaru was in, and I feel like some decades have passed, so maybe Hotaru was alive during Reiko's time. And again, I think she is Reiko. I don't know how that exactly works, but in my mind, she kind of is at this point. So I wrote a blog post on this. It's not posted at the time of me recording it. I'm actually like looking at the draft in my Word document right now, and I'm gonna upload it after I finish recording this. But I wanted to talk about it. So Hotaru means firefly in Japanese, and the title is Into the Forest of Fireflies Light in English. So it's very much about Gin and Hotaru. And the spirits in Hotarubi no Mori, just like in Natsume Yuujinchou, for the most part, they're not very hostile or aggressive. They're actually pretty nice. Unless something happens to them, like we see in Natsume Yuujinchou, where Reiko just didn't show up anymore to see them, and they got like jaded and angry, and it turns out she actually just passed away because humans have very short lives. But basically, in Hotarubi no Mori, so the spirits are warning Gin to stay away from Hotaru for fear that she will accidentally touch him and then he'll disappear.
消えるってのは消滅するって意味だ。
Due to the mountain god's quote-unquote curse.
人間に触れたら最後。それでおしまいだ。
And, that does happen. A child does sneak in to the Spirit Festival later on in the film, and he does actually, quote-unquote, die because of that. But I'll get to that in a second. So, the spirits, basically, they're talking mainly to Gin and telling him to be careful, but one of the spirits was apparently the forest lord, the Yamagami, according to the wiki. He actually threatens to eat Hotaru, and then Gin later tells Hotaru that he would never eat her, and he was just trying to protect him. I wonder if the the rumors, which Hotaru's the godfather, Hotaru's uncle actually believes as well, that if you go into the forest, you'll get spirited away. I wonder if those rumors were started by the yokai themselves to keep Gin safe and to keep countless others who maybe the mountain god made into a.
きっとこれが最後の。待ってよ
危ない。
大丈夫？何があっても絶対私に触らないでね。
Eventual firefly, safe from human touch so that they would live forever with the yokai and the spirits of the forest.
私たちはずっと銀と一緒にいたかったけど。
銀はやっと人に触れたいと思ったんだね。
So, because eventually Gin does tell Hotaru his story.
俺は妖怪ではない。けれど、もはや人でもない。
And the sort of magic used by the mountain god may have. I mean, Gin kind of considers it a curse.
それに甘えて、いつまでも成仏しようとしない。幽霊のようなものなんだ。
I would consider it kind of a blessing in a way, because Gin should have died. He was abandoned in the forest.
人の子だったらしいけど、赤ん坊の頃、この森に捨てられたんだ。
As a baby.
本来その時、命を終えていたはずだったけれど、山神様が憐れんで、妖術で生かし続けてくれている。
But the mountain god took pity on him, and he put a spell on him so that he would live. But the only caveat is that he can't be touched by a human, otherwise he will disappear and dissolve. And which, again, at the end of the film, he does turn into a firefly. But I feel like due to how many fireflies we've seen towards the end of the film that were around Hotaru that were not Gin, I feel like this happens a lot in this mountain, and that is exactly why people were saying you'll get spirited away, and why maybe the yokai themselves in human forms, which I'll explain in a few minutes, but maybe in human forms they were the ones spreading these rumors to keep, again, those who were turned into human spirit hybrids safe, and just to keep people away and protect the forest. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but years ago, well, it was more popular years ago. It's kind of, I don't know if it's actually taboo now, because it seems like nothing's taboo anymore. But before, well, it's a rumor, I guess, an urban legend, a myth, folklore. I believe there's some truth to it, but I can't find anybody who will admit to it, who's actually Japanese or whatever. It's the same thing with like a human sacrifice and pillars of old buildings. People deny it, but I feel like there's some truth to it. But basically, they say that in old times in Japan, when I think Korea too, South Korea, well, just Korea in general, they did the same thing, probably China as well. They would abandon elderly people in the mountains and babies in times of hardship, or if there were a drought coming up, or like a famine, or just a harsh winter, if they didn't have enough, they couldn't feed that many mouths, they would abandon them. And I feel like this is probably what happened to a lot of people who were abandoned in the forest. Because what got me about Gin's mom abandoning him, or whoever abandoned Gin in the forest, it might not have been his mother. We really don't know what happened. He doesn't know either, obviously. Is Gin had a baby bottle next to him when he was abandoned, So meaning, like, I guess whoever left him was hoping that somebody would find him, because why would you leave a baby bottle with a baby you didn't want in the middle of the forest if you wanted it to die of exposure? That makes no sense. So the child was given a new life, but it was turned into a spirit by the mountain god. And again, kind of just hovers between existing and just being frozen in time until Hotaru comes along. And again, Hotaru means firefly, so that's important to remember.
妖術で保たれている体はとても脆い。
So now where I feel like there's the Natsume Yuujinchou connection coming in. So again, volume 1 of Natsume's Book of Friends. On the cover, if you look at it, it looks like Gin. It doesn't even look like Natsume. Like the Natsume we have in the anime has light brown, almost blondish, like a strawberry blondish hair, and brown hazel eyes. And then on the cover we have Gin with like clearish gray eyes and silver hair. And aside from that, I felt like there were a few other key things that happen in later episodes and later seasons of Natsume Yuujinchou that literally did not happen yet, didn't exist yet in the manga, in anime, in any other form, that were in this short film. And I understand, like, Hotarubi no Mori could have been the precursor to Natsume Yuujinchou, but I mean, that's like some sort of Isayama level of foreshadowing, and I just feel like it was one story in Hotarubi no Mori, it was closer to the truth, and maybe Natsume Yuujinchou is like the expanded version of that story, and maybe almost a retelling of certain events, like how they would have wished they happened. I don't know, but so the first thing I want to talk about is Tanama's house in Hotarubi no Mori. So like I was saying earlier, well, I think I was saying it on this recording. I actually deleted the last recording. I just did it because I hated the way it sounded. But if I didn't mention it here, I feel like it's the same location as Natsume Yuujinchou, this short film takes place in. I know Reiko jumped around a lot, but eventually she did end up at the Fujiwaras, and you know, she ended up helping. I can't think of the guy's first name, but Mr. Fujiwara, she ended up helping him out from his yokai problem, and that's ultimately where Natsume ends up. And I feel like this is where Hotaru was in the short film, and this is the same place, the same town, this literal same area where Hotaru met Gin, and the same area where Yanko Sensei or Madara was sealed in. Which I guess I'll just mention this right now. So Madara can only transform into Reiko in his human form, and apparently this is very hard to do for spirits. Only a spirit of high caliber can do this. But maybe, I don't know, maybe Madara is just lying, or maybe the spirits in Natsume's time are a little weaker.
みんな人に化けてるの？
そう、見事だろ。時々は人もそれとは知らずに迷い込んでくるらしい。
Because literally every spirit we see at the spirit festival in this film, Hotarubi no Mori, could turn into a human. I mean, the fox spirits, they had their tails still showing, but for the most part, it looked like it does in Natsume Yuujinchou, where they just have the mask, but for the most part, they look like humans. So I don't know what happened between the time of Hotaru to the time of Natsume and Madara's release, but it seemed like those spirits back then could look at people and change into them, and Madara only really had contact with Reiko, which is kind of weird. And then he ends up having contact with Reiko's grandson, and he never really elaborates on how he knows Reiko. So it's still weird to me with that. I feel like there's something there, but anyway, so I wanted to talk about Tanuma's house. So Tanuma is, well, it's Natsume's one of Natsume's first real friends where he can open up to and let him know that he can see spirits. And Tanuma is the son of the local, I think he's, what is it, the shrine priest? I haven't seen the show in a while, but I know he lives in like a shrine or a temple or something, and I believe that temple that they live at, or the temple that they're restoring and taking care of, is these sort of dilapidated areas that Hotaru and Gin walk through. Like that really long set of steps, and then it's like the lanterns and stuff. I feel like that's the same place. And I feel like Tanuma lives in Hotaru's uncle's house. And why I say this is because the pond. There's an episode where Tanuma tells Natsume that he can see like the reflection of a pond, but when he looks outside, there's no pond. And in at Hotaru's uncle's house, there's a pond outside, and Hotaru is staring at the reflection up on the ceiling, kind of like how Tanuma was trying to stare at it. So I feel like there was once a pond there in Hotaru's time, and then it got covered up or something. And then Tanuma and his father moved in, and obviously they were new to the area, so they wouldn't know that it used to be a pond there. But like the imprint of the pond is still there. Kind of like there's this episode in Natsume Yuujinchou where a tree was cut down, but it's like the tree was still there. And then in one of the posters, promotional posters, and the reflection of like a pool of water, you can see the yokai, some of Natsume's friends, but then like if you look just in like I guess looking normally, you can't see them at all. And they say that with plants too, actually. Like it's actually actual studies, like if you cut a plant and take it away, it's still like there. The energy is still there. You just can't see it anymore. So and again, that's like a real study. It's not like me just making it up. I don't remember if it's from The Secret Life of Plants or where I read that. I've read it and I actually seen a video of it too. I don't know if I'll find it by the time I post this, but so I mean, it's like a energy signature in a way. So I feel like that with Tanuma lives in Hotaru's uncle's house. So then too, there's the little Shippo, like from Inuyasha, the fox child, who Hotaru makes a point of pointing out when her and Gin are at the Spirit Festival during their last summer together. And it reminds me of the episode where the little fox child came across Natsume in the forest or the mountains or somewhere, and like the fox child followed Natsume home, and it took the train and everything, and it got mistaken as a human and just traveled to meet Natsume again. And Natsume had to end up taking the fox child back home, but I feel like that was a callback to that. And then one of the spirits that looks like an ox when Gin was a baby, watching him, it reminds me of the two spirits. I think they called them bullies from Natsume's dog squad, Chukyu A and B. And one area that they're in actually, in like this screenshot I have from one of the older episodes, it looks exactly like the lantern area I mentioned earlier with the stairs, but it's like all kind of destroyed, I guess, from the passage of time. I don't know, but it just I don't know. I feel like I'm onto something here. I probably could be wrong, but and then I think there's an episode to Natsume Yuujinchou where the tiny forest god was like dying because nobody was praying to him anymore, and he was only holding out because he wanted to see a human woman that he had fallen in love with, which is kind of like the same, well, not the same plot line, but similar plot line to this short film. Then I think there was another episode where a human and a yokai were in love, and when they touched, they were reunited or something, they both disappeared. I feel like that was the show.
私たちを分かつでしょう。けれどそれでもその時まで
好きだよ。
一緒にいようよ。さあ行こう。
And then too, the tree yokai from Natsume's childhood, one of the flashback episodes of Natsume's childhood that would scare him in the park and thought it was like hilarious. It's the same exact way that Hotaru tried to scare Gin in the film when they were in the forest. So it's just a lot of little things. I'm probably missing a few other things, but it's just a lot of little things where it's like I was watching it and I haven't even seen Natsume Yuujinchou in like years. I haven't rewatched any of that show, but it's like just seeing that in the film. I was like, that's exactly what that is. That like I was like watching. I was like, okay, that's that incident. That's that incident. That's from that episode. So it's definitely like she already had the full story writing the one shot and in this short film, and then it's just being stretched out and expanded in Natsume Yuujinchou. But what do you think? Because I'm already almost at 20 minutes, and I think I've kind of exhausted what I have for now. I'm gonna keep looking into this though. I'm gonna watch season 1 over because I feel like Hotaru is young Reiko. I was even trying to look at the uniforms because Hotaru was in her first year of high school when Gin kind of turned into a firefly. And I was looking at the screenshot I have of an episode where, well, the episode where Yanko Sensei pretends to be Reiko, and her hair is like up to her shoulders. And Hotaru's hair was still short, but the uniforms kind of look similar in the flashback of real Reiko. So I don't know if anything's there with that, but let me know your thoughts. And if you've read the manga, is there anything else in the manga that I might be able to look for to try to find out more about this? That being said, like and share the video if you liked it, and see you guys again soon. Bye bye.
ホタル、忘れてしまっていいんだよ。
いつまでも懐かしいあの頃は黄金色何気ない私と共に生きてゆく